In a small village near Lagos, Nigeria, a baby girl was born on a stormy night. Her mother, Adana, struggled through a difficult labor and died shortly after naming her daughter Joy. The village midwife wrapped the crying infant in a colorful cloth and brought her to her father, Emeka. Emeka was overcome with grief. He looked at his newborn daughter and whispered, "Joy, you have your mother's eyes. But how can I raise you alone?" For 5 years, Emeka did his best to care for Joy. He worked long hours as a carpenter and relied on the help of an elderly neighbor to watch Joy during the day. But Joy was a quiet child who kept to herself, and the village children whispered that she was strange. One day, while working on a construction site in the city, Emeka fell from a scaffold. He died before reaching the hospital. Joy, now 5 years old, was left truly alone in the world. The village elders met to decide what to do with the orphan child. Some said she should be sent to an orphanage in the city. Others whispered that she was cursed, bringing bad luck to those around her. In the end, no one wanted to take responsibility for the quiet little girl with sad eyes. "She is an abomination," declared one of the village elders. "No mother, no father, no siblings. Surely the gods have turned their backs on this child." And so Joy found herself unwanted and unloved, forced to live on the outskirts of the village. She slept in an abandoned hut and survived on scraps and the occasional kindness of a few villagers who felt pity for her. Years passed, and Joy grew into a young woman. She learned to fend for herself, gathering firewood to sell in the market and doing odd jobs for anyone who would hire her. But she remained an outsider, always on the edges of village life. One day, when Joy was 18, a stranger came to the village. His name was John, and he was a teacher from the city who had come to help set up a new school. John noticed the quiet young woman who seemed to fade into the background whenever others were around. Intrigued, he approached her one day as she was selling firewood in the market. "Hello," he said with a kind smile. "I'm John. What's your name?" Joy looked up, startled that someone was speaking to her directly. I'm Joy," she replied softly. Little did Joy know that this simple interaction would be the beginning of a change in her life, a change that would show her that love and acceptance were possible, even for an unloved orphan. As John and Joy began to talk, she found herself opening up to him in a way she never had with anyone before. John listened without judgment as Joy shared bits of her past. "I've lived here all my life," Joy said, her eyes downcast, "but I've never really been part of the village." John's brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" Joy hesitated, then explained how she had become an orphan and how the villagers had rejected her. John was shocked by the cruelty she had endured. "That's terrible," he said. "No one deserves to be treated that way." Over the next few weeks, John made a point of talking to Joy whenever he saw her. He invited her to help at the new school, teaching her to read and write alongside the younger students. For the first time in her life, Joy felt a sense of purpose. She threw herself into learning, soaking up knowledge like a sponge. John was amazed by her quick mind and determination. As they spent more time together, John and Joy grew closer. John saw past the quiet exterior to the kind and intelligent young woman underneath. And Joy, for the first time, felt seen and valued for who she was. One evening, as they walked back from the school, John turned to Joy. "You know, you're one of the smartest people I've ever met. You shouldn't be selling firewood, you should be teaching." Joy blushed at the compliment. "Me, a teacher? But I've barely learned to read myself." "You've learned more in a few weeks than some people learn in years," John insisted. "You have a gift, Joy. You shouldn't waste it." Those words planted a seed in Joy's mind. Could she really become something more than the village outcast? As the weeks turned into months, Joy continued to help at the school. She discovered a talent for working with the youngest children, patiently helping them sound out words and count numbers. John watched with pride as Joy blossomed. He realized his feelings for her were growing into something more than friendship. But he hesitated to say anything, not wanting to pressure her. One day, as they were cleaning up after class, John finally gathered his courage. "Joy," he said, his voice serious. "I need to tell you something." Joy looked up, a flicker of worry crossing her face. Was he going to say he was leaving? That he didn't need her help anymore? Instead, John took her hand. "Joy, I think I'm falling in love with you." Joy froze, her eyes wide with shock. "Love me?" she whispered. John nodded. "You're kind, smart, and stronger than anyone I've ever met. How could I not love you?" Tears filled Joy's eyes. All her life, she had been told she was unlovable, an abomination. And now, this wonderful man was telling her he loved her. I think I love you too," Joy admitted, her voice shaky. As John pulled her into a gentle embrace, Joy felt a warmth spread through her chest. For the first time in her life, she felt truly accepted and loved. But their happiness was about to face a serious challenge. The next day, whispers began to spread through the village. People were unhappy that the respected new teacher was getting so close to the girl they still saw as an outcast. The village elders called a meeting. Would John and Joy's love be strong enough to overcome years of prejudice? Or would Joy once again find herself alone and rejected? The village elders gathered under the big baobab tree in the center of the village. Murmurs of discontent filled the air as John and Joy approached, hand in hand. Chief Adebayo, the oldest and most respected elder, raised his hand for silence. We have called this meeting to discuss a matter of great concern, he announced. Our new teacher, John, has been seen courting the orphan girl, Joy. Angry voices rose from the crowd. She's cursed. Someone shouted. She'll bring misfortune to the school. John stepped forward, his face calm but determined. Respected elders, people of the village, please listen. Joy is not cursed. She's a kind, intelligent young woman who has suffered great hardship. Despite this, she has a generous heart and a brilliant mind. The villagers muttered skeptically, but John continued. In the short time she's been helping at the school, Joy has shown an incredible talent for teaching. The youngest children adore her. She's patient, creative, and has a gift for explaining difficult concepts. Chief Adebayo stroked his gray beard thoughtfully. Is this true? The children learn well from her. Before John could answer, a small voice piped up from the crowd. It was Unloved, a 6-year-old boy known for being stubborn and difficult to teach. Miss Joy is the best. Unloved declared. She helped me learn to read. She never gets angry, even when I make mistakes. Unloved's mother, Folake, stepped forward. It's true, she said, looking surprised at her own words. My Unloved has improved so much since Joy started helping at the school. I was wrong about her. A ripple of surprise went through the crowd. Folake had been one of Joy's harshest critics in the past. Encouraged, John spoke again. Joy has overcome so much. Instead of becoming bitter, she has chosen to help others. Isn't that the kind of person we want teaching our children? The villagers began to talk among themselves, their angry voices now thoughtful and considering. Joy, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. Her voice was quiet but steady. I know many of you have seen me as a curse, an outsider. For a long time, I believed that about myself. But John has shown me that I have value, that I can contribute to this community. She looked around at the faces of the villagers, many of whom were avoiding her gaze. I love John, and I love teaching. All I ask is for a chance to prove myself. There was a long moment of silence. Then, to everyone's surprise, Chief Adebayo started to laugh. It was a warm, rich sound that seemed to break the tension. Ah, young love, he said, shaking his head with a smile. Who are we to stand in its way? And if this young woman can teach Unloved to read, she must truly have a gift. The chief turned to the crowd. I say we give Joy a chance. Let her continue to help at the school. If the children thrive, we will know we were wrong about her. Slowly, the villagers began to nod in agreement. It wasn't universal acceptance, but it was a start. As the meeting broke up, John hugged Joy tightly. You were amazing, he whispered. I'm so proud of you. Joy felt a warmth in her chest that had nothing to do with the hot Nigerian sun. For the first time, she felt like she might have a real place in the village. Over the next few months, Joy threw herself into her work at the school. She spent long hours preparing lessons, creating teaching materials from whatever she could find, and working one-on-one with students who were struggling. Gradually, the villagers' attitudes began to change. Parents noticed their children's excitement about school. Test scores improved. Even the most skeptical had to admit that Joy was having a positive impact. One evening, as Joy was walking home from the school, she heard someone call her name. It was Mama Neka, one of the village women who had always been particularly cold to her. Joy, Mama Neka said, looking uncomfortable. I wanted to thank you. My daughter Amara always struggled with numbers, but now she comes home talking about math like it's a game. You've done well. Joy felt tears prick her eyes. Thank you, Mama Neka. That means a lot to me. As Mama Neka walked away, Joy felt a sense of belonging she had never experienced before. Slowly but surely, she was becoming part of the community. But just as things were looking up, a new challenge arose. John received a letter offering him a prestigious teaching position in Lagos. It was an incredible opportunity, but it would mean leaving the village and Joy. John was torn. He loved his work in the village, and he loved Joy. But this was a chance to make a real difference on a larger scale. When he told Joy about the offer, her heart sank. Would she lose the only person who had ever truly loved her? Joy felt her world spinning as John told her about the job offer in Lagos. She tried to keep her voice steady as she asked, "When do you have to decide?" "They've given me 2 weeks," John replied, running a hand through his hair. "Joy, I don't know what to do. This is an amazing opportunity, but I can't bear the thought of leaving you." Joy took a deep breath, pushing down her fear and sadness. "John, you have to take it," she said softly. "This is your dream. You can help so many more children in Lagos." John looked at her, his eyes filled with conflict. "But what about us? What about everything we've built here?" Joy managed a small smile. "I'll be okay. You've shown me that I'm capable of so much more than I ever believed. The village is starting to accept me. I can continue teaching here." As the words left her mouth, Joy felt a stab of pain in her heart. The thought of losing John was almost unbearable, but she couldn't be the reason he gave up this opportunity. The next 2 weeks were a whirlwind of emotions. John and Joy spent every moment they could together, both trying to memorize every detail of their time together. The villagers, hearing about John's potential departure, surprised them both with their reaction. Chief Adebayo called another meeting under the baobab tree. This time, when John and Joy arrived, they were met with warm smiles instead of suspicious glares. "John," the chief began, "we have heard about the offer from Lagos. While we would be sad to see you go, we understand this is a great honor." He paused, his wise eyes twinkling. "However, we have a counteroffer for you." John and Joy exchanged confused glances. The chief continued, "We propose to expand our school. We want to offer classes for adults who never had the chance to learn to read and write. We need 2 head teachers to run this expanded school." He smiled at both John and Joy. "We would like you both to take on this role, as equals." Joy gasped, her hand flying to her mouth in shock. John's eyes widened in surprise. Folake stepped forward. "We were wrong about you, Joy. You've proven yourself to be a gifted teacher and a kind soul. We want you to stay and help our community grow." Tears welled up in Joy's eyes as she looked around at the nodding, smiling faces of the villagers. These same people who had once shunned her were now embracing her as one of their own. John squeezed Joy's hand, his own eyes bright with emotion. "Chief Adebayo, everyone, this is an incredible offer. Can you give us some time to discuss it?" The chief nodded, and John led Joy away from the crowd. Once they were alone, he turned to her, his face serious. "Joy, this is your decision too. I know I've been struggling with the Lagos offer, but I realize now that my heart is here, with you in this community. But I need to know what you want." Joy took a moment to collect her thoughts. All her life, she had felt unwanted and out of place. Now, for the first time, she was being offered a true home, a place where she belonged. "John," she said, her voice trembling slightly, "I never dreamed I could have something like this. A job I love, a community that accepts me, and," she looked up at him, her eyes shining, "someone who loves me. I want to stay. I want to build a life here, with you." John's face broke into a wide grin. He pulled Joy into a tight embrace, lifting her off her feet and spinning her around. Their laughter rang out, drawing smiles from the watching villagers. Hand in hand, they walked back to Chief Adebayo. "We accept," John said simply, his voice filled with joy. The village erupted in cheers. Children ran up to hug Joy and John, while the adults came forward to shake their hands and offer congratulations. As the celebration continued around them, Joy looked up at John. "I never thought I'd say this, but I'm home," she whispered. John leaned down and kissed her softly. "We're home," he corrected. In the months that followed, Joy and John threw themselves into expanding the school. They worked tirelessly to create adult education programs, teaching reading, writing, and basic mathematics to villagers who had never had the chance to learn. Joy, once the unloved orphan, became a respected and beloved figure in the community. Her kindness, patience, and innovative teaching methods transformed the lives of many villagers, young and old alike. 1 year after they decided to stay, John proposed to Joy under the same baobab tree where the village had accepted her. Their wedding was a joyous celebration that brought the entire community together. As Joy stood beside John, surrounded by the smiling faces of the villagers, now her friends and family, she marveled at how much her life had changed. From a lonely, rejected orphan, she had become a treasured teacher, a beloved wife, and an integral part of the community. Joy's story became a legend in the village, a testament to the power of love, perseverance, and the ability of a community to grow and change. And though she faced challenges in the years to come, Joy never again felt unloved or alone. The end.